On February 23, 2005, 9-year-old Jessica Lunsford would be put to bed for the last time. She lived with her father and grandparents in a small mobile home in Homosassa, Florida. Her grandparents put her to bed at 10 p.m., where she fell asleep clutching her precious stuffed dolphin. However, she was awoken at 3 a.m. by 46-year-old John Couey. He told her, "Don't yell or nothing," and led her out of the house without a trace, taking nothing but Jessica and her dolphin. What occurred over the following weekend was truly despicable and happened right in the center of a massive search for the 9-year-old girl. Prior to this, Jessica was an extremely well-behaved and loving child. Her parents, Mark and Angela, had split up when she was 1, leaving Jessica to live with her father, who she adored. She was well liked by the community and had ambitions of becoming a fashion designer and singer. She lived with her father, his parents, and a dog named Corky in a small mobile home. They were not wealthy, but they made the most of what they had and were happy together. Jessica's most prized possession was a purple stuffed dolphin, which she would always have by her side, whether she was out and about or fast asleep. She rarely defied her father or grandparents and was generally very sweet and obedient. As many families did in the area, the Lunsfords had a habit of leaving the front door to their home unlocked. They believed the community looked out for each other, and there was nothing to be afraid of. However, just 65 yards from the residence was another mobile home owned by Dorothy Dixon. Dorothy had a half-brother who was staying with her, a 46-year-old sex offender named John Couey. On the evening of February 23, 2005, Mark, Jessica's father, would leave the home to visit his girlfriend and spend the night there. Jessica was put to bed by her grandparents at 10 p.m. Her clothes for school the next day were folded on a nearby chair, but sadly, she would never put them on. 5 hours later, at 3 a.m., John snuck into the home through the front door. Initially, he had plans to rob the home. However, he saw a young girl who he thought to be about 6 years old. It was at this point that his plans changed. He woke Jessica up, leading her out of the home, over to his half-sister's mobile home. They climbed a ladder into his bedroom window, where John would begin raping her. The following morning, Mark would come home from his girlfriend's house at 6 a.m. He heard Jessica's alarm going off for school, and an abnormal amount of time had passed with the clock still beeping. He went to check on Jessica, but saw that she was not in her bed. Her folded clothes for the day were untouched. He searched the home to no avail, as if she had simply vanished. All that was gone was her and her stuffed dolphin. Mark immediately called the police, prompting a massive search for the 9-year-old girl. Police, neighbors, and volunteers searched for her using bloodhounds, helicopters, and dive teams. Meanwhile, John was holding Jessica in his bedroom in the midst of it all. He continued raping Jessica throughout the weekend, and when he went to work, he would tie her up and leave her in the closet. She would play with his cat and sing quietly to herself. During the search, he even showed Jessica the agonizing sight of police looking for her through the window. Hours turned into days, which turned into weeks, and still there was no sign of Jessica. Police checked through the sex offenders registry in search of anyone who may have been responsible for her abduction. They eventually landed on a person of interest, John Couey, who had left the state under the pretense of a new job in Georgia. He had a massive criminal history, having been in jail for 24 of the past 30 years, under various different charges, such as burglary, indecent exposure, driving under the influence, and much, much more. This, in combination of him living within eyeshot of Jessica's home, caused police to look further into him. He was brought back to Florida and questioned about Jessica's disappearance. On March 18, 2005, he was arrested and interviewed. The interview lasted only 2 hours, in which John confessed to everything. However, the confession would later be ruled as inadmissible, due to police not providing John with a lawyer upon request. They would now have to rely on physical evidence to secure a conviction, but thankfully, they found plenty. They searched the home of Dorothy Dixon on March 19th, finding that Jessica had been buried alive nearby. John had tricked her into this by telling her he was taking her home. Unfortunately, obedient and well-behaved Jessica believed him. He convinced her to get inside of a trash bag so that he could take her back without anyone noticing. But instead of taking her home, he took her to a pre-dug grave near the mobile home. She clung to her stuffed dolphin as dirt was piled on top of her. When police found her body, they saw that she had poked holes through the bags with her fingers, but was ultimately unable to escape. Other evidence police found included bloodstains of Jessica's, mixed with John's semen on his mattress, as well as her fingerprints found on the pizza box in the closet. With evidence found to indicate John in the crime, the trial began. In court, Mark addressed John, saying, "I hope you hear her cry as you try to sleep at night. You will never hurt another child again." To which John responded with, "I'm a sick person. I don't even know why I did it to her." Not only was he guilty of Jessica's assault and death, but he also admitted to having sexual contact with nieces in the past. However, those instances were never reported. Jessica's death would go on to inspire many changes in the criminal system, making punishments for first-time sex offenders harsher. Mark would become a strong advocate and proponent of this, centering his life around it. On August 4th, 2007, John was finally sentenced to death, as well as 3 life sentences in prison. But only 2 years later, he died of natural causes on September 30th, 2009. It is safe to say that John got off lightly, receiving only 2 years of imprisonment after a truly gruesome crime.